John Wayne was the quintessential American cinematic hero. He settled the West on screen his way. I was raised on his movies. He defined the cowboy. To the uninitiated, he represented law, justice, individualism, and the American way. He was Howard Roark on a horse. He didn't ask for much, but he demanded respect. I must have seen 50 of his movies before I met him. He was old when we did our interview. His last film was called The Shootist. It was released in August of 1976. A few months later, I conducted what was to be among his final interviews. The movie chronicled the life of an old cowboy gunslinger reluctantly moving into the so-called civility of the 21st century America and dying of cancer. His performance was perfect. He had the pedigree. As I drove out to his home by the beach, I carried with me the baggage of my perceptions. He had created controversy with his strong political opinions that year, which included displeasure with anyone who opposed the Vietnam War. I had long hair at the time and was concerned he might view that with suspicion. Most people who meet a movie star say that the first thing they notice is how much smaller the actor is in person. When John Wayne opened his door, he was larger than the image. He put out his hand, and I looked up to him with awe and trepidation. But that only lasted a second. He was the proverbial gentle giant. We spent the afternoon together, taking a break from our taping for lunch in his kitchen around a long wooden table with paper plates and napkins. We had franks and beans, and he was drinking bourbon. Afterward, we went into his den and continued the interview. To my surprise and disappointment, he shook off the imagery of being a cowboy. He felt his best movies had nothing to do with that subject. Well, perhaps it's good to have your myths debunked by the source of their origins as opposed to your own. As the afternoon wore on and the whiskey flowed more freely, I opted to turn off the tape recorder. I was not in the business of the exclusive, and he asked if he could express some thoughts to me off the record. I honored that request. Half my lifetime has passed since that day. During the process of attempting to preserve and digitalize and edit some of these tapes, I found this one and sent it off to his son, who had never heard it. A few days later, I received a letter from him in which he thanked me for being able to share a little more time with his father.
You can give them action. A horse is the best vehicle for action in our medium. As a matter of fact, you can show speed with cars and everything, but the animal, the horse, gives you the best action. So you can give them action, you can give them scenery, and then you can give them a scene. This helps to carry stories. That all stories have their descriptive and narrative parts that must be explained, but you have these added things to help you cover those, shall we say, monotonous points in the story. And that's why the Western was so valuable to the motion picture business.
In watching The Shootist last night, So much of that is so obviously autobiographical when it comes to your life and your own work.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, people are trying to read these things into the story. I have played Western gunman on many occasions, but that's not an autobiography unless you mean what was my work, which has been making motion pictures.
You don't see...
But I really have not been a gunman all my life, so that it's not biographical. I've hunted 2 or 3 times in my life, but I can't remember shooting anybody.
But surely in the movie we see even though you've played many parts in 150 different motion pictures, from American fighting men to police officers,
or to the man in The Quiet Man, or
yes,
to Genghis Khan, or to engineers in South America. I mean, it's been a series of things, and some of them very fine pictures, but I've done so many Westerns that I am best known for those portrayals. I played a fellow that should have been on the psychologist's couch, I guess, in Wake of the Red Witch.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it was a very good picture, I know. I mean, I feel. But those things, you know, if I only made as many pictures as the average actor of my period, you would have remembered those things. But I make so many that I'm just, and most of them Westerns, that they forget that there were different characters, different reactions to life by a different type of person. And they only remember the cowboy.
Putting aside the fact that the shootist was about to become a retired gunfighter, putting aside that association, there were other elements in the film that parallel your own life, of course. And the most glaring...
Well, I've had cancer.
Yes.
Now, that, I suppose, is what you mean. My cancer was discovered, thank God. I did a picture called In Harm's Way, and I had a cast insurance x-rays taken, which they always have to do for insurance. And in my early life, pardon me, when I was about 3 months old, I had double pneumonia, and I have scars on my lung tissue. You can cut that stuff out.
I can edit everything.
Because of that, they missed a little tiny growth that was growing alongside of one of these things. But in 3 months, it was almost the size of my fist, because I went for my normal physical, which I take at Scripps Clinic every year or every 2 years, and this was the time to go, so I went. And they discovered this. I never suffered any pain. I was lucky it hadn't metastasized. I went right to a doctor and had the operation. Naturally, I had plenty of pain, and it has been hampered me physically since by removing the lung. But I've known no great torturous pains over a period of a great period of time.
What about those 3 precepts that the shootist mentions to the boy while he's taking that walk that opened the film? Those 3 things seem to characterize your attitude.
Well, they did try to find those things. That was not in the original book, as you'll notice.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah?
How'd you ever kill so many men?
Well, I lived most of my life in the wild country, and you set a code of laws to live by.
What laws?
Well, I won't be wronged, I won't be insulted, I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same from them.
But how could you get into so many fights and then always come out on top? I nearly tied you shooting.
Friend, there's nobody up there shooting back at you. It isn't always being fast or even accurate that counts. It's being willing. I found out early that most men, regardless of cause or need, aren't willing. They blink an eye or draw a breath before they pull a trigger. I won't. We did try and, I have said, in my parts and pictures I've tried to, I don't mind being rough, tough, cruel, but not mean or petty. That's one of the things. Well, they didn't know how to get that one in. The other one is I don't like to have people push and pull me around. They put that one in. I told them about certain places and pictures, like there was a scene in Hondo where this fellow, in his argument with me, he kept pulling me around. I said, lay off now, this is a $3 shirt, and I don't have any $3. Well, after about the third time, I whacked him out through the door. Well, those, I'll agree with you, they're biographical in that those are the things that have been important to me in my picture image.
Interesting answer. How close is the picture image to the man, then? From people who've seen...
I don't like to be pushed around. I don't like people to pull my shirt. And I might react the same way in real life.